Assalamu alaikum. This is the first roza of the 2nd century Ramadan. First Ramadan of the 2nd century and first roza. As such, I congratulate you all who have gathered here today to listen to the first verse of the 2nd century as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون يا أهل الكتاب لما تحاجون في إبراهيم وما أنزلت التوراة والإنجيل إلا من بعده أفلا تعقلون ها أنتم هؤلاء حاججتم فيما لكم به علم فلم تحاجون فيما ليس لكم به علم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون. These are the verses beginning from 65th of Surah Al-Imran, and it is the beginning of the 7th ruku, isn't it? 7th ruku? That's right. Up to the Ramadan last year we had covered verses up to 64th of the Surah Al-Imran, that is فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُفْسِدِينَ. But if they turn away, then remember that Allah fully knows the mischief makers. The translation of the verses which I have just recited is as follows. Say, O people of the book, come to a word equal between us and you, that we worship none but Allah, and that we advocate no partners with Him, and that some of us take not others for lords besides Allah. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we have submitted to God. O people of the book, why do you dispute concerning Abraham when the Torah and the Gospel were not revealed till after him? Will you not then understand? Behold, you are those who disputed about that whereof you had some knowledge. Why then do you now dispute about that whereof you have no knowledge at all? Allah knows and you know not. These verses are related to that incident, that famous, not incident, but anecdote or happening. How would you describe that visit of Najran as what in English? That episode perhaps. So they are related to that episode recorded in history when Ahl Najran, that's to say Christian leaders from Najran, visited Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam and held a longish debate with him on differences of doctrines between Islam and Christianity. You know very well that in the end of that debate, Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, under divine command, invited them to Mubahala, which is a sort of spiritual contest, and what are the words? Pardon? Spiritual, but I had another word, it just missed me anyway. Leave it, contest would do. Is bout, that's right. That's the word which I generally use, correct. Invited them to a sort of spiritual bout, whereby instead of unnecessarily lengthening the argumentation, one seeks to invoke Allah's curse on the party which is not only liar but is willful liar. So that was the point which Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam made clear to that deputation from Najran, that the time has reached when it has become very clear to me, and so Allah also endorses this view of mine, that now you are unnecessarily lengthening the debate, knowing full well that you are in the wrong, and knowing full well that I am in the right. That is the stage which is ripe for Mubahala. So then nothing is left but to invoke God's curse on the party which is a willful liar. As such, as you know well, we threw the same challenge, supported by the same principles, to those of the non-Ahmadi mullahs who we know are aware of the fact that Ahmadiyyat has basically two principles in it. They know very well that Ahmadis believe in the Holy Quran as the final book. They know very well that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ never claimed to be a prophet outside the pale of Islam, and in any way, even remotely insubordinate to Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was the knowledge born out of our long experience of disputations with them, which also prompted me to throw the same challenge to them. Here, of course, this verse which I am going to discuss now opens up a new subject, but I am beginning with that because during that experience of the past so many months, almost more than half the year is over, I have found that some Ahmadis did not fully understand the implication of Mubahala as such. And instead of remaining limited in their challenge to such leadership of the opposition to whom this criterion applies, that they are willful liars, the truth of Ahmadiyyat or the basic principles of Ahmadiyyat has clearly dawned upon them. And they know fully that when they tell the people that Ahmadis do not believe in the Holy Quran as the final book, they are liars. They know this is wrong. When they tell the people that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ claimed to be an independent prophet outside the pale of Islam, or nullifying part of the teachings of Islam, they know it is wrong. They know they are liars. They are the people who were addressed in that Mubahala challenge. But innocently, the Ahmadis, because perhaps they were misled by the fact that we told them to distribute this challenge to everybody by way of information, not by way of challenge. So, having been misled and confused about it, they started throwing this challenge right and left to every Tom, Dick and Harry. Even to an ordinary person who doesn't know the meaning of religion, who has no knowledge of ABC of Islam, an ignorant person who indulges in invectives. So having been injured spiritually and sentimentally, perhaps they thought this is the weapon now in our hands, so we must invite every Muslim to a challenge. This is not correct. Because as these following verses will explain, after the challenge is given or thrown to such people, then there is no more debate left. But our debate with the rest of the Muslims continues. And this is what exactly the following verses are explaining. That although a small delegation of some Christians who represented a certain sect or a certain school of Christians came to debate the issue with Hazrat issue of truth of Christianity versus Islam, and it gradually appeared during the debate that they had begun to see the truth and yet they were willfully trying to hide it. So a challenge was thrown to them, and in the same challenge the Holy Quran mentions La hujjata bainana wa bainakum. From now on there is no debate left between you and us. So that might have misled people to believe that after that there is no communication whatsoever, no dialogue between Islam and Christianity. That is what has to be clarified, and this is exactly what these following verses clarify in fact. Here the address is broadened. All the Ahl Kitab, including the Jews and Christians and others, are included in this challenge, which says that although a small chapter may have come to a close regarding a debate with a certain delegation, but as far as the debate between Islam and Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Islam and other revealed religions is concerned, that goes on incessantly without coming to a halt at all. It's a continuous process. There, what attitude should we take other than that of argumentation and logic and persuasion? This is the second approach which is mentioned in this verse. But let me first turn to some scholars of Islam who do not agree with this point of view. They believe that this address is also limited to the people of Najran. And although they understand that after Mubahala there is no more debate, but they believe that because the people from Najran, a delegation of Christians from Najran, had not accepted the challenge of Mubahala, so another area of settling the dispute was presented to them, not by debate, but by a completely different manner. Allama Razi also holds this view, that this address is limited. I have gone through all the important classical commentaries of the Holy Quran, including, of course, Imam Razi, and Aqrabul Mawarid is also a very important such book. Then Al-Manar, this is Allama Muhammad Rashid Radha. You have heard of it before during my last year's sermons. That's Tafsir Fathul Qadir, Imam Shawkani, Tafsir Al-Khazin. This is also a very famous book of commentary. Al-Jawahir fi Tafsir al-Quran. This is a recent book, but also it has acquired some respectable place among such books. Al-Furqan fi Ma'arif al-Quran, Muhammad Abdul. This is also one of the recent ones. And some others, of course. And also we have consulted dictionaries and various commentaries, although not in the books of commentary, but generally made here and there in different books. all of them, speaking on this verse, have taken three different views. Number one, that of Imam Razi, which I have mentioned. Some others have taken the view that Ahl Kitab here means the Jews of Medina and the Christians who came to debate the issue with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the second thought. They broaden the issue. The third view is that no, Ahl Kitab applies to all Jews and all Christians. And this seems to be a much more logical view, but unfortunately these Mufassirin have unnecessarily linked the verses of the Holy Quran to the context of their revelation. This is a problem with them which has generally misled them, and they have been bereft of the true implication of these verses because their view was so narrow, and the application of the verses they thought, the true application according to their concept was very limited and was related to an incident of the time when the verse was revealed. So that is what has been predominantly in their mind, that because these verses were revealed at the time when Wafd from Najran, a delegation from Najran, was visiting Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so obviously the address was only limited, and the implication also was accordingly limited to that incident alone. This is not true. This is a verse of an immense importance. This is a verse of universal value. It is one of the rare verses of the Holy Quran which stands out above, head and shoulders above even other verses of the Holy Quran. Because here some most wonderful, everlasting principles are mentioned, which are universally applicable, which are above time, which are ever living. So to limit the application of the meaning of such a wonderful verse of the widest application to a small, narrow-minded approach is cruelty to the Holy Quran, although I know it has been done inadvertently, but still it is injustice to the Holy Quran. I believe that this verse, of course, it was addressed to them as well. There is no denying that. But it does not only apply to Ahl Kitab as known to us to be the Jews and the Christians alone. This verse applies to all the Ahl Kitab, all the religions in the world who can be considered as revealed religions. The books are not only limited to that line of revelations which we come across in our study of the history of Middle East and Middle Eastern religions. Only a few books are mentioned there, and they are very limited in their application to an area where there was, to begin with, tribal religions, and then bigger clans were addressed, and then people of the region as such. But no one among those prophets addressed the world at large, the humanity at large. So if the Holy Quran refers to Ahl Kitab only in that limited meaning, then this book cannot be applicable to the rest of the mankind at all. But it is not so. The Holy Quran specifically makes mention of it that this book addresses the entire mankind. So there must be some verses of the Holy Quran to explain this situation, that all the people in the world did receive books from Allah, and the revealed laws did not remain limited to the Middle Eastern region, but to all the various parts of the world at various times in history. There were books which were revealed to them. To prove this point, I have got a verse to support this view, which I am going to recite before you. Number one, there is the famous, oft quoted verse of Surah Al-Bayyinah which says, وَمَا تَفَرَّقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةُ وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ وَيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. Surah Al-Bayyinah, verses 5 and 6. Which means, وَمَا تَفَرَّقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةُ. That those who differed among themselves or with others, who had been given the book prior to their differences, they did not begin to differ with each other, but after the book had been revealed to them. Now this is a very significant point which must be borne in mind, that although the books are revealed to remove the differences, the Holy Quran is taking this position which is very unique and which is not found elsewhere in any book in the world, that the religious differences begin to appear after the books from Allah have been revealed. Previously, people are just alike. They don't give such things big importances. They do not religiously or ethically dispute their differences. Only after the books, that is to say the divine books, have been revealed to people, then they begin to differ. So it says, وَمَا تَفَرَّقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ. People of the book did not begin to disagree among themselves, إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةُ, but after clear signs and the book had been revealed to them. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. Although initially they were all instructed or ordered to worship God purely, entirely, without mixing the worship of God with other the concepts of worshipping other people or one's own self or one's desires. All that is included in this. Mukhlisin. Mukhlisin means where your intentions are single-minded, pure, without any adulteration, without any thought of some other possible source of worship and things and so on and so forth. So, Hunafa also means that you always bend in that direction. Hanif is a beautiful word which means somebody who's inclined towards some thing or some object of love in a manner that if he stumbles, he would always fall in that direction. There is no stumbling away. Like somebody is reclining on the wall, if the wall is removed, it will not fall backwards. It will fall in the direction where it was propped. So Hanif, Hazrat Ibrahim is Hanif. That is the true meaning of this word. That he is so deeply inclined and dependent entirely for his existence upon God, that even if he falls, he will fall in the direction of God. So Mukhlisina has been further qualified, that this is the true meaning of Mukhlisin, that you have no other thought, nothing but God in your mind when you worship Him, always inclining towards Him. وَيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةَ, and in this spirit you establish the habit of praying to Allah. Worship, regular formal worship is mentioned in as-salat. وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ, and keep in mind the rights of the people upon you. So this is the essence of all the teachings of the world, which are common not only to Islam and those religions revealed in the Middle East, but to all the religions of the world. That is why it says, وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. This is the true meaning of religion which is everlasting. So if God had been revealing religions to other parts of the world, this is exactly the religion which He revealed to other parts of the world. This verse is, the meaning of this verse can be understood in a much wider application by the verse which I now am going to recite before you. It says, Surah Al-Baqarah, the verse 214. Kanan nasu ummatam wahidatan. So now you know that the bell is ringing in your mind now. That similar thing we have just heard before. People were just one. There were no differences. Kanan nasu ummatam wahidatan. فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ. It was then that God raised prophets who gave them glad tidings and warned them against the serious consequences of their conduct, munzirin. وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ, and revealed books, sent books along with them. So they were law-bringing prophets everywhere. بِالْحَقِّ, they came with truth, or these books came with truth. لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِي مَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ, to decide between people about what they disagree. Now this is a very interesting verse because it seems to be paradoxical inherently. But of that, this is not the point to be made. I'll discuss that some time later maybe. But this is a very interesting point which I want to raise here. The opening claim is Kanan nasu ummatam wahida. Like in the other verse which I quoted before from Surah Al-Bayyinah, وَمَا تَفَرَّقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةُ. Bayyinah comes first and the differences appear later. The same claim is made in the opening of this verse, and then it ends up by saying, لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِي مَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. So that the revealed or divine teaching gives verdict and sits as passing judgment over those things, over those matters in which they differ or disagree with each other. وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ فِيهِ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوهُ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ. Now this automatically resolves this apparent paradox, the following part. So I don't have to wait for another time. This verse in itself resolves this paradox. It says, وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ فِيهِ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوهُ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ. That the books were revealed at different times to different people. And before them they were just one ummah. Which means that although they differed with each other in many things, but centrally they belonged to the same lot. They had the same wrong tendencies, the same bad habits, the same evils, the same reactions to all situations. A corrupt people are a corrupt people. They differ with each other, but in a manner where they can be described as belonging to the same lot. Essentially they have no difference. Al-Kufru millatun wahida means just exactly this. That before the books are revealed, you find a sort of unity, a sort of oneness in the society. And their differences are just superficial and meaningless. Basically, they are inclined towards evil, towards selfishness, towards whatever they please, they must pursue that. That is the situation of oneness in which every prophet of God finds the people. Then comes the book to unite them, not in the same sort of unification in evil, but unification in truth and goodness. So the lot of the people is transformed, and then they again are made an Ummat-e-Wahida of a different type altogether. Having done this, as the time passes, these people begin to differ once again with each other after they have been unified. And the same evil forces of corruption and selfishness and pursuit of worldly pleasure are the source of all this difference second time. So it becomes a continuous story and a universally continuous story of people in the form, people in a state where, although there are differences between Jews and Christians and Hindus and Muslims and so on and so forth, apparently, but God says no, there is no difference between them. They have fallen back to the same lot of such people who are inclined from God. They have turned away from God. And their differences do not mean anything. In the sight of Allah, they are just one people. Then come the books. Then the differences come to appear seriously. Hot debates are pursued with much more seriousness than ever before. And then ultimately God unifies them, this time in truth and in goodness. After that, when they become corrupt, the same forces take over and they begin to differ with each other, not because there is any room for differences in the teachings of Allah, because fundamentally they are one and the same thing, as the other verse which I recited before has explained to you. But because they become corrupt, as they were corrupt before, the books were revealed to them. فَهَدَى اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لِمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الْحَقِّ بِإِذْنِهِ وَاللَّهُ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Then this process goes on. Another prophet comes who rehabilitates the truth, establishes the inclination towards piety and towards God. Mukhlisina Lahuddin is the essence which is mentioned here, not in so many words, but in essence it relates to that. Then these people become one again. Now this verse, as you have seen, is a universal phenomenon. Everywhere in the world, this is exactly what happens. That means to say, Ahle Kitab appear everywhere. And to begin with, when a Kitab is revealed to a people, before the time of the revelation, they, according to the Holy Quran, are one people. In their character, that is the meaning, the true meaning of this verse, of their oneness. They are in character one. Whatever name or title you give them, they belong to the same lot, which is the lot which has gone away from God and which is inclined always towards evil. Then the books are revealed, and then this process again begins. So why must we limit the application of the word Ahl Kitab? What reason? Why? What authority do we have to limit the application of a verse of the Holy Quran which is so universal in its message and so beautiful and so potent with the truth, which is the essence for resolving all disputes between man and man. So this verse is a very important verse. Ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa'in bainana wa bainakum. Come to the point, come to that claim among us which is common. Now there are some words which have to be explained with the help of Arabic dictionary, before I proceed to address this second part which I have just mentioned. So bear with me for a few minutes, because some people find this boring when one begins to give the different meanings of words with the help of Arabic or any other dictionary. Some people are not, interested in such things. So they keep waiting until the commentary begins again. But we have to do it because this is a very important part. You must understand the Holy Quran according to the usage of the Arabs. And otherwise, if you just begin to indulge in commentary without fully understanding the implication of words used, it is very likely that you will be led astray, carried away by your imagination to regions which were never meant to be discussed by the Holy Quran. So that is why you have to bear with me whenever I begin to quote dictionary and the possible usages of the important words used in the verses on which we comment. I didn't begin with it intentionally because I was afraid some of you might start sleeping or doze off. कमर साहब आपने आगे पीछे कर दिया सब किस्सा सारा, है ना? हैं? हरे लुगात तो नीचे ऊपर होना चाहिए. कहाँ? कोई भी नहीं. ये है. हले लुगात, ठीक है. ये इसके बाद ये तो निचला है दूसरे हिस्से का. ये इसमें आ गया सारा. Where is the rest? Was it all? Okay. The words which are to be taken note of are kalima, first of all. The word kalima has been often used in the Holy Quran. What it means, what is the source of this word? This in fact is originally a three-lettered word, kaf, lam, mim. And because in Arabic, if you give different inflections to the same letters or add one or two letters to give it in different combination, the meanings change completely. Although the essence remains the same everywhere, but still the meaning can change so much that the subject with a little turn can become an object can become a subject, and so on and so forth. Without the help of Arabic grammar, you cannot understand the direction of meaning, because Arabic is a very directional language. In this, for instance, Zaraba Zaidun Bakran means Zaid beat Bakr. But if you say Zaraba Zaidan Bakrun, it means Bakr beat Zaid. So this is just a simple example of how directional the Arabic is and how you have to be very correct in its pronunciation and understanding of its grammar. So no other words, you see, have been used. But when you think of abwab and their inflections, then in the same context, new meanings and shades and connotations begin to appear. So the same sentence can acquire a completely different meaning, apart from the directional meaning which I just referred to. So kaf lam means, kalam means to injure. Kalama in this sense means somebody has injured somebody. Yaklimu is the Muzariya, as they call it. Future and past, present mixed together is called Muzariya. Kalman is the infinitive, which means just injured somebody. But when you change the bab, that is measure, it's called in English grammar. When you change the measure and turn it into babe taf'il, that is kallama yukallimu takliman. Instead of kalama yaklimu kalman, when you change it to a different measure, kallama yukallimu takliman, it leaves every connotation, it sheds every connotation of injury and acquires the meaning of speaking, of speech. So this is the importance of Arabic grammar, how things can sometimes dramatically change from one thing to another if you change the measure of the same three-lettered words. Now there is one little exception which has to be borne in mind. According to the first meaning of this word, kalama yaklimu kalman, maklumun is the person who has been injured, the object on which this thing has taken place. And kalimun is the person who injures others. It is not the subject, but it is called ism tafil, which means a person who has this constant habit in him of injuring others. Now this is the accepted meaning everywhere except in one case. Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is referred to as Kalim. There he is not referred to as the one who injures, but one who speaks. So that is the only little point, the small area where both the meaning of injury and kalam, that is speech, are found united in this first form. So the Arabic dictionaries all point out to this exceptional use. They say whenever the word kalim is made possessive to another word, the meaning there becomes not the one who injures, but the one who speaks. So Kalimullah is the title of Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, which means the one who used to speak to God. Otherwise, kallama yukallimu takliman and babe takallum also is used for the same meaning of speech. Takallama, yatakallamu, mutakallimun. You know that, of course. You have many a time in Urdu used the word mutakallim, which means the one who speaks. Mukallama is babe mufa'ala from this, which means speech from both sides, like munazara, like mubahala, where two sides are involved. Al-kalmatu bil-fathe al-lafzatu, the word kalma bil-fathe means with a zabar on kaf, on the word K. Instead of reading it kilma or kulma, you say kalma. The fatha here applies to the word kaf. It means al-kalama, according to the grammarians, is any word or any letter or any utterance, whether it is meaningful or not. Whatever you say becomes kalima, whether it is singular or plural. Its plural comes in two forms. Kalim means many and utterances, and kalimat also, as you read in the Holy Quran, means many utterances. Aqrabul Muwarid speaks of one usage in the Holy Quran of the word kalim as kalimatul baqiya, al kalimatul baqiya fi qawil Quran, وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً. They say this word kalima baqiya means the La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Oh no, not the second part, but the only first part. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but one. So this is baqiya. The question is, why has the author of Aqrabul Mawarid taken this to mean La ilaha illallah? I personally think, although he has not mentioned it, because of the verse from Surah Al-Bayyinah which I have recited to you, which says, Zalika Deenul Qayyimah, to claim that God is one and there is no God beside him, to entirely, purely subject yourself to his worship and to no one else. That is the true faith, which is qayyimah. And according to Zalika Deenul Qayyimah, according to this grammarian, Baqiya and Qayyimah seem to be one and the same thing. Perhaps that is the reason why he has picked it out as Kalima Baqiya, to be La ilaha illallah, because this is a claim which is Qayyimah, that means it is found in every teaching of the world. Wherever a book was revealed, you will find it based on this. Secondly, Qayyimah means something which does not only survives by itself without the help of anybody else, but it also gives support to others for survival. It helps others, other people prop on it. So all religions prop on this kalima, La ilaha illallah. They begin with it, they end with it. That is the most central message, the most everlasting message. So because those teachings which are qayyimah, they have to stay. And they are the only teachings, in fact, which stay forever. So that is why Al-Baqiya also is another version of the same meaning. Any word or any truth which is universal and which is everlasting would be referred to as Baqiya or Qayyimah. Then I don't know why it says that Kalimatu Taqwa means Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Have you any knowledge why it should be? But it is somewhere where they have, I wanted to illustrate to you that dictionaries sometimes tend to go beyond the area where they must remain confined. They begin to add meanings of their own understanding and interpretations to the simple words of Arabic, keeping in mind certain usage of the Holy Quran and their understanding of that usage. So as such they are no authority, but only just an opinion of a scholar, may be very interesting, but it has no value as a verdict of dictionary. So Kalimatu Taqwa, according to him, is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It may as well be, I don't dispute it, but it has no authority as based on the Arabic dictionary as such, because here he has deviated from the principles of lexicography. Allama Mufradat al-Raghib, Allama, what's his name, Raghib? Allama Raghib, whose book is Al-Mufradat lil-Gharaib al-Quran, he says, Al-Kalmo at-Tasir al-Mudrako bi-Ihd al-Hassatayn fal-Kalamu mudrakun yuhassat bi-Hassat al-Sam'i wal-Kalmu bi-Hassat al-Basware, which means that Al-Kalm means the effect of al-mudrak, of that thing which you conceive. Bi'idal hasatayne, with one of your two senses. That is either with the sight or with the ears. So anything which you see or which you hear, and the concept you make out of it is al-kalm. That is to say, if you read it, then it becomes kalm. If you hear it spoken, then it at the same time it's kalm. So he is trying to further define the meaning of al-kalm. People previously had been saying what you hear, people speak. So here is added to, he added the area of writing and reading as well. Some people say that the word, Nahviyin, that is to say the grammarians, they say the word kalam applies to the meaningful utterances only. That is to say, either they are names or acts described. But most of the mutakallimin, those who, the Muslim scholars who discuss the philosophies and doctrines of Islam, particularly those who debated the truth of Islamic doctrines with some opponents, they are called al-mutakallimin. They believe that the word al-kalam can only apply to al-jumlatil murakkabate, which al-jumlatil murakkaba means a compound expression, not a singular expression. So as against the grammarians who say the word kalam, I'm not talking of kalima, but talking of al-kalam. According to grammarians, al-kalam can be a single word. Whatever you utter, if it is meaningful, if it is either noun or an act, you can refer to it as kalam. But mutakallimin are rather restrictive in this application. They say it only means whatever is a compound utterance, that is al-kalam, otherwise it would be kalima, not kalam. According to Imam Raghib, the word kalima has been used by Allah differently in the Holy Quran, and in some places it means decree. So it should not be understood in the widest meaning as we are discussing of the word, any utterances, but it positively means decree, al-qadiyya. For instance, Bala walakin haqqat kalimatul azab wa tammat kalimatu rabbik. The decree of your Lord has reached its final consummation. There is no more to it. I mean, that is ended there. It is completed. It has been perfected. And in other such application, Bala walakin haqqat kalimatul azab, beware, the decree of azab, that is punishment, has come true, has come to pass. Haqqat means al-kafirin, on those who deny the truth. So the word decree can apply both to a warning and to a glad tiding. And the word kalima will be again used the same. So this would be the Quranic jargon. The word kalima here should not be understood in the ordinary broad meaning of dictionary or Arab usage, but here it becomes a particular jargon of the Holy Quran. shirka, this we'll discuss later. Sawa. So what does sawa mean? Sawa means balance, where two things are equally balanced. So the address is Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawaim bainana wa bainakum. That, O people of the book, come to that word, or that meaningful word, let's say, which is common between us to a degree that we do not have greater claim on it than you have. And we do not claim a monopoly over this, because it is equally distributed among us, well poised between you and us. This is the meaning of sawa. And as such, the most wonderful address of the Holy Quran to, as I have mentioned, to all the people of the book, all over the world, is this, that no one has a right to monopolize truth. Truth is common to all mankind, to everything created by God, in fact. But here particularly, people of the book are addressed, and it is pointed out to them that those fundamental truths of which we are speaking, and the Holy Quran speaks of them in detail later on, they should be common between you and us, and they are always common between those people who claim to be Ahle Kitab. Because no Kitab, no divine book was ever revealed without these truths. So this is the address to the whole mankind, and the principle involved is this, that when disputations don't lead you anywhere, when there are arguments and arguments about one person's truth or another person's truth, when even the challenges crop up and appear where you begin to invoke Allah's wrath on a section of the society which is opposed to you, is that a total break? Do you have no further communication? Have you separated permanently as two different societies? That was the issue which could possibly be raised here. That was a question which could be possibly raised here. And this is the question which the Holy Quran now begins to resolve. It says, with some extremists, of course, a time comes when you can say, all right, your way is your way, lakum dinukum, waliya deen. And what is left to them, us, is only to invoke Allah's wrath, and that's all. But such people are a very small element in the society, a very small section of the society, a very insignificant fragment of the society. Don't carry this attitude towards the rest of the world as at large, the rest of the people who don't agree with you. This is the one message which is given to us, and which must be understood particularly by Ahmadis in the context of what has passed during the last so many months. The second emphasis is that we must not always try to emphasize the differences. Of course, the differences are to be resolved. But here this verse is mentioned at a point in debate where we know that the differences could not be resolved with debate, through debate. What next? The Holy Quran says, all right, if you can't agree to our point of view and we cannot agree to your point of view, still we do not necessarily separate permanently. As human beings, we must find areas of commonality, of common interest, where we could do some service in the name of goodness. So, total separation between people following different doctrines is not conceived by the Holy Quran. In fact, this is the most beautiful teachings which was ever revealed to any prophet of God. Despite the fact that a time has been reached where it has been mentioned clearly in the Holy Quran, we begin to invoke Allah's curse. Yet, as a whole, as people against people, this is not the general attitude acquired by the Holy Quran or taught by the Holy Quran. That everlasting teaching is always try to find points of commonality. And as such, go for the unification, not for the diversification or creation of differences and chasms. If the world today sticks to this as principle, then the whole mankind can find some common course of goodness to which they agree. So the application of this verse is not limited only to Ahle Kitab, understood by us today, but Ahle Kitab of the whole world. That's one thing which should be kept in mind. Secondly, the principle involved in this does not only apply to the Kalam La ilaha illallah, but it is just an illustration. An attitude has been explained. The fundamental emphasis is Ta'ala ila kalamatin sawaim bainana. Whatever of common interest we can find, on that we must unite our forces and efforts for the service of mankind or for the service of God. This principle is further explained in another verse of the Holy Quran, and that is why I say this is exactly the meaning of this as well. Ta'awanu ilal birri wat taqwa wa la ta'awanu alal ismi wal udwan. The teachings to Muslims is that wherever you see goodness, without regard to your differences of doctrines and beliefs, always cooperate with goodness and never cooperate with evil. So it is not only limited to the realm of doctrines, La ilaha illallah. This is just a beautiful principle explained in a very singular form of brilliance. But it is applicable, generally speaking, to all human relationships and all areas of human interest. So we must find common points, or we must endeavor to find common points between man and man, faith and faith, and religion and religion, and begin to cooperate on those common points and highlight them. In this way we can do away with all the hatred we find today exercised in the name of Allah and in the name of different religions and gods. Now, unfortunately, as many a Muslim of the medieval mind, I don't say medieval times, they live here today among us, but they still live in the past. They belong to the medieval times. So I refer to them as medieval minds. Those scholars live today who would distort this most beautiful principle as well. And one is deeply shocked at how they could distort the teachings of the Holy Quran, where these verses defy distortion. I mean, they stand out as most wonderful, beautiful principles of truth and torchbearers of fundamental philosophies of mankind, of truth. That they distort these principles. A recent example can be quoted from Pakistan. In Pakistan today, the fight between Ahmadis and the non-Ahmadis mullahs demonstrates clearly as to who sticks to this beautiful principle and who is opposed to this. Our call to them is Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawaim bainana wa bainakum. We invite you, come, join us in all the areas where we agree as far as the interpretation and the practice of the teachings of the Holy Quran is concerned. Let's join hands. Ta'awanu alal birri wat taqwa. Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawaim bainana wa bainakum. And their response to this call of unity is that no, we monopolize truth. We monopolize goodness. And their claim is that Islam monopolizes truth. Islam would not let anyone else share its beauty and its truth, either in ideology or in practice. Now imagine this verse and this concept of Islam, how can they in any way reconcile with each other and compromise with each other? There is no common field between these two views, no common area where they can unite. Like darkness and light cannot unite together. Similarly, this claim of the non-Muslim scholars in Pakistan vis-a-vis the Ahmadis, rights to believe in Islam and to practice Islam, as far as that is concerned, their claim, their assertions are completely contrary to the teachings of the Holy Quran, and particularly to this beautiful claim of the Holy Quran which says, Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawa'in bainana wa bainakum. Now, they do not only disagree in generalities, they hit right at the middle of this verse, at the very substance which is mentioned in this verse. Ta'ala ila kalimatin, that is, there is no God but one. Kalima tawheed. So you read the verse, then you will understand what the message of this verse is. Allah nabuda illallah wa la nushrika bihi shay'un wa la yattakhiza ba'duna ba'dan arbabam min dunillah. We call you to the one central point of agreement, which is we worship none but Allah, and that we associate no partner with Him, and that some of us take no others for lords besides Allah. In the third part is also mentioned prophethood. Because this is the second part of the kalima we have as articles of faith, as an article of our faith. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and a longer version is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. That in whomsoever we believe apart from God, we believe in Him as servant of Allah, not as partner of Allah. So in this way, in this claim, this invitation, the invitation to the belief in Risalat is also implied, but not emphasized here in clear words. Otherwise they would say, we don't believe in Muhammad, we believe in that prophet and that prophet. But the common point is, believe in people as prophets, not as partners of God. But to believe in prophets is not a monopoly of Islam. That is also implied in this. Now, Pakistani mullahs say, because we have declared you to be non-Muslims, you have no right to share anything of Islam with us. What a stupid thing to say. I mean, total madness. But this is exactly what their claim is. Regardless of what the Holy Quran says, even if you look at it from ordinary human level, even with the intelligence of a pagan, you'll be shocked at the stupidity of this claim. That because we have a distinction, they say, in believing in a beautiful teaching, that is Islamic distinction. We will not permit you to share it with us. Because we have been given a beautiful code of life, the way how you should worship God. So this is ours. This doesn't belong to you. We will not permit you to share it.
And they, number one, they monopolize the truth, which the Holy Quran says nobody can monopolize. And number two, even if it was a singular teaching of the Holy Quran alone and it was not to be found elsewhere in the world, yet according to the Holy Quran, nobody has a right to tell people off this beautiful teaching. But everybody is, in fact, it is incumbent upon every Muslim to invite others to its own beautiful teachings, despite the fact that the religions remain different. This is the most important message of this verse. It doesn't say, come and join us as Muslims first, believe in Islam and in totality, and also believe in the founder of Islam as the true prophet of Allah, then you will be given the right of believing this beautiful teaching and acting accordingly. It doesn't say that. It says, remain where you are. Believe in whatever you please. But join us in the beauties of Islam, which you also claim you own. This is the meaning of this very apparent verse, which is so obscure to these mullahs of medieval mind, that one is surprised at how they miss these things. It doesn't require a deeper study, and this is as plain as that. Anyone in the world, when he is taught the meaning of this verse in just plain, simple language, would immediately agree with you that this is the apparent and the only meaning, in fact, not the only meaning, but the apparent and the most undeniable meaning of this verse. Now you'll be surprised to learn that a debate raged on this very issue before the Sharia court a few years ago, in which the judges, the learned judges of Sharia court, took this strong, firm position against the Ahmadi advocates like Mujibur Rahman Sahib, that Islam cannot permit a non-Muslim to share its sha'air. The word sha'air is also a very interesting word which has to be explained. According to them, sha'air mean those distinctive features, let's say, of Islam according to them, which point to somebody being a Muslim. All those teachings, whether they are held by way of beliefs and doctrines, or whether they are translated into practices, which are good, of course, but they can be described as Muslim views and Muslim practices. According to these judges, no non-Muslim can share these practices. Now the Ahmadi lawyers, of course it was mainly the learned Ahmadi scholar Mujibur Rahman Sahib who did it most beautifully. He pointed out that, sir, of course they are sha'air, but Muslim sha'airs can be common with non-Muslim sha'air. This is the point. If some non-Muslims, as you consider them to be non-Muslims of course, have the same sha'air as you have, what right and authority have you got to dispossess them of those sha'air and dispossess them of the right to practice those sha'air? So one of the Maulanas in the court said, no, it's impossible. No non-Muslim can have any sha'air which are Muslim sha'air. He said, but this is ordinary common practice. Everybody has such things. The Jews have many things in common with Islam. The Christians have many things in common with Islam. And Islam, the Holy Quran says in so many words, he quoted this verse, that there are sha'air which are common to you and us. And Islam says, doesn't say we'll prevent you from practicing on such sha'air. It says, come, you are not practicing. We invite you to start practicing on those sha'air which is common between you and us. So one of the judges kept on shaking his head, said, no, it's impossible. No shire can be common between Muslims and non-Muslims. So then perhaps he said, such as, if you insist, there are, such as, he said, such as your beard. You know, the Jews have beards, and such as circumcision, khatna. You have khatna and Jews have khatna. Are they not common between you? So at that time, a silence fell upon the court, and the other judges started looking at him, and it reminded Ahmadis present of the verse of the Holy Quran, فَبُهَتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. It reminded them, but they could not mention it, because it would be contempt of court, of course. But in the case of the historic event to which this verse refers, فَبُهَتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ, in those days there was no concept of contempt of court. There was only one court in their minds, which was the court of Allah, against which no contempt had to be committed. But here, even if you innocently think of something, of some verse of the Holy Quran which applies to a past event, these people have become so sensitive. Now let me end up by once and for all analyzing this issue and telling you what is really wrong and what is wrong with them and their thinking. They say that if somebody is superior to some inferior person, if the inferior person, this is their philosophy as I have guessed, because there is no logic in it, so one has to guess. They perhaps think that something is inferior if he begins to act like a superior being. That would be like imitating him, and that should offend the superior being, because nobody can, according to their philosophy, imitate a superior being or a superior way of life. Now this is their concept perhaps, but when you further analyze, then you will know the absurdity of all this nonsense. We always imitate the superior beings. This is good. To imitate the inferior is wrong. When we try to imitate Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like they do, they claim at least, what are they doing? As far as the gap and chasm between them, their status, and that of Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is concerned, absolutely, the difference is that of antipodes, like two different poles. They fall short in everything of goodness which was practiced by Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so beautifully and so perfectly. Yet they give themselves the right to imitate Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why should not God be offended at this? You mean things. Why do you dare? How do you dare imitate the most perfect man I have ever created, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So do they not hurt and injure the sensibilities of all that is the angelic world and sensibilities of the pious people of the olden times? They know this is wrong. They are false in this claim. Now, there are different creations of God, various species in the animal kingdom, and the Muslim scholars have discussed this issue previously with relation to that. They say man can be described as, after all, however you define him, after all, he is to be defined as one of the animals, belonging to the larger genera of animal, a species of the animal kingdom. So it cannot be called an animal unless it shares some things with the animals. So to share with animals something is not wrong, neither for the animals, not for them. But the debate doesn't end here. Let's further advance in this comparison. And they say, if a dog is black, a man can be black, his hair can be black. If a dog, has certain pattern to his coat, So can man wear a coat like that. And the other things of commonality, like a dog eats some things, man also eats some things of the same nature, and so on and so forth. So there is no insult to either in practicing something common. But now let's turn to those things which are positively distinctive features of man. And positively distinctive features of dogs. Now let's refer back to the debate raging between Ahmadis and the non-Ahmadi mullahs. First of all, they claim dogmatically that we belong to Islam, you do not belong to Islam, and Islam has certain distinctive features which are not held in common by any non-Muslim. So, if that is so, La ilaha illallah is certainly not one of those. Most certainly not. To worship God is not certainly one of those areas. But they insist this is a distinctive feature of Islam and we will not permit you to stick to this. But anyway, this is all logic and nonsense and sheer stupidity. But I'm coming to another angle of analysis. Now let's see, there are distinctive features, of course there are, between dog and man and other animals. Now if a parrot, for instance, begins to imitate man, will you kill him for that? Will you consider it a crime? If a dog behaves in a sensible manner when it is trained and responds to your call and sometimes attends to your work at home and assists you like a human servant, will that be an affront to humanity? Will such a dog be punished and killed and beaten up mercilessly for behaving like a man? No. The fundamental principle is if a man behaves like a beast, then he is punished. So to imitate a superior is not a crime. To imitate an inferior is a crime. This is the universal principle applicable to all affairs in life. And this is what they try to reverse. This is how they negate the central message of this verse, Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawa'in bainana. God says that come to that common point which is good. And as good you have a right to share that point with us. But if it was wrong, then it is wrong to follow that, to imitate that point. And that point is made clear in the second verse which I recited in the beginning, that Ta'awanu alal birri wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu alal ismi wal udwan. As far as imitating others is concerned and behaving like others is concerned, in everything good, this is the order, injunction of the Holy Quran. You must always join hands with those who are doing good and help them. But do not imitate them in bad things. So what they simply fail to understand is that they are preventing us from doing good things and they themselves have a right and license to imitate bad things. And this also is proved in the courts of Pakistan. It's a recorded history now. In the time of the dispute between Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his opponents were extremely hostile to him. They prevented Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his followers from declaring openly La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. They prevented him and his followers from practicing Islam and worshipping God as they pleased, to perform pilgrimage when they attempted to do. So it was their distinctive feature to prevent others from doing good. Now this is exactly what they have started expecting us to do. They have started imitating. They, like these old opponents of Islam, they prevent us from doing good things. which they know are good, against the specific and explicit order of the Holy Quran, ta'awanu 'alal birri wat taqwa. And they, in doing so, become similar to those of the earlier times, of the time of the Holy Founder of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when such people, unfortunate people, were born even in those days, who did exactly the same thing. So once in the court of Balochistan, this question was specifically put to the president of Khatm-e-Nubuwwat, some organization, I don't know exactly the...
General Secretary of Balochistan.
The General Secretary of Balochistan, Majlis-e-Tahfuz Khatm-e-Nubuwwat. This is the full title, official title. I'm assisted here by someone who originally hails from Balochistan, so he knows what he's talking about. So the General Secretary of Majlis-e-Tahfuz Khatm-e-Nubuwwat, Balochistan, was confronted with this question by a lawyer from the Ahmadiyya side, that will it be right for me to say that you are behaving towards Ahmadis exactly in the manner as the enemies of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam behaved towards him and his followers, and you want to prevent them doing things as the earlier enemies of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to prevent him and his followers to do those things, and the things are the same. Is that right? He said, yes, it is absolutely right. So there ends the verse on his emphatic agreement with the point that they are behaving, unfortunately, in a manner as reminds you of the enemies of Islam. This is completely a contradiction of the teachings of the Holy Quran. They give them license to do bad things, imitate animals and beasts, and do not give us license to imitate goodness and good things and human beings. So this is the difference between the Holy Quran and the distorted images of people who claim to be following this book.